This conference will now be recorded.
Hey, everybody, it's Tammy DeLu here on another episode of the Safe Space Podcast. And as you know, this podcast is all about safety. It's not just about money, but it's about how to make yourself safer in a world that honestly, even though it's predictable, it depends on where you get your information. A lot of these things we could have guessed would happen, but at the same time, it leaves everybody a little bit confused and a little bit in a struggle, in a dilemma to know what to do to make yourself safer in so many different ways, besides buying a shotgun and a couple of cases of shotgun shells. So my guest today is Andrew-winnett-legacy. That's how you know how to pronounce his name, Winnett, Andrew-Winnett, and he's an advisor. I think, aren't you originally from California and you fled long before it became trendy? Was that
This is true, Tammy. California is a great place to be from, and
far
so
from?
I grew up in California in the Sacramento area, up in the foothills, Auburn, Rockland area, and we moved out to Tennessee about 2019 with my wife and my 4 children.
And your 4 children. So prolific in so many ways. He is.
Indeed.
So actually, he knows the area that I'm from then, which is Brentwood in the East Bay,
Yeah,
not too far from Sacramento,
very
out
familiar. Yeah.
in the cornfields. So Andrew is a financial educator and author, and he has a unique approach to money because lately, because of what's going on in the economy, I've had a lot of my podcasts about money. And before we start, though, Andrew, I want to tell you what my predictions are, and then you can kind of build off this, and then
Okay.
work in your background and how you came to these conclusions and all this other stuff, in the story as you tell your story. But okay, here's my predictions, and just think on these things.
Okay.
I believe that COVID's going to make a surprise return. And it's going to be right around the midterm elections. It's going to be right around winter. Why do I believe this? Because the White House, I guess he's the chief medical officer or some such bureaucratic title. Anyway, he let it be known recently, kind of slipped under the radar, but he talked about a possible surge, that scary word, coming in the wintertime. So call me a cynic, but I think it's a coincidence that these midterm elections are going to come up. And I believe this is going to give these progressives that have taken over the world a chance to register a lot of dead people, and non-citizens and other miscreants, and prevent people, most of all, prevent people from getting out and seeing what's really going on in the world. Because I think that's what the first COVID was all about. That's just me.
Yeah.
Now, what's really going to be interesting for you as a financial advisor, and those of you who consume financial products, is in a couple of days, the CPI, that fiction, that work of great fiction that's right up there with Hemingway, Consumer Price Index, which influences so many things. I mean, you don't even know, but it's a piece of fiction, pure fiction. It comes out, and I think anyone with half a brain, which excludes politicians because I don't even think they have half a brain, but the true inflation is in my just basic math. Okay, I was not a mathematician in school, but I can do basic math pretty well. I'm getting 17% as a consumer. I'm saying 17, maybe even more. Okay, they're going to say, okay, they can't say that, can they? Because if they announce the CPI at 17%, the world as we know it will melt, right?
Yeah.
So I believe they're going to do some Common Core math, and they're going to come up with like an 8%. Okay, because anything over 9 is going to rock the markets, right?
Well, the other thing is they've got to make they've got to make Jerome Powell look like he's the knight in shining armor, the hero, and with them raising the interest rates, 0.5% this last go around, they've got to make it look like it's somehow paying off all of a sudden, which it won't.
It won't. It's too little, too late, baby. Too late, too little. It's that. I mean, 0.5%, really, or whatever. So I think that's what's going to happen. And even if they do say it's 8% or 8.5%, just some shade below 9%,
Mm-hmm.
What's going to happen is they're going to blame it on the Ukraine war, the Russians, China, right-wing extremists, Joe's dirty socks. It won't, they'll never own it. They'll never say, we screwed up. And the reason we're having these problems has to do with how we handled or mishandled COVID, right? So the third thing I thought would happen is that in all of this chaos, no one's ever going to hold the Biden Graph Syndicate accountable for the stuff that's on Hunter Biden's laptop. And if you do perchance actually read articles on it, you see it's very, very, very bad stuff. And any other president would be impeached by now. So I don't know what's going on with there, except that we're too busy trying to survive. Massive water shortage in Cali. Now, being from Cali, Andrew, you know that water policy in California is fraught with political issues, right?
Yeah.
Okay, years ago, when I was just way before my time, but years ago, Governor Brown, the first one, told everybody in California, he said, I predict there's going to be horrific water shortages. I mean, we built this whole state on a desert, so there's going to be some water issues. And here's what I recommend. We need to start building dams. We need to start building reservoirs. We need to start desalinization or whatever technology was prevalent at the time. No one did a thing. As a matter of fact, California ripped off its taxpayers for the money to do these things, but didn't do anything. You know why? Because we're too worried about using the right pronouns and putting tampon machines in the men's rooms. So because of this, California is going to have to, we're already been told, we've been told by Greasy Gavin that we're going to have to do water rationing starting June 1st. That's going to kill the farming industry. That's going to kill the recreational industry. That is going to be, in some places, get this, Andrew, they're talking about doing 55 gallons per household a day. That's barely enough to wash a little laundry, much less do anything else. So it's bad. It didn't have to be this way, but they allowed the green people to tell them, hey, let's shut down the nuke plants. Let's not have any more dams. Let's do this. Let's do that. And they allowed that in, that whole lobby group to ruin the state. And let me tell everyone who's listening here, if you think it's just California having problems, remember this state has less than 4% of arable farmland in the country, but it produces a fifth of all the agriculture in the country. So think what this is going to do for the rest of the shortage. Yeah, so it's coming. So now Andrew's going to talk about, this segues really nicely into the story of Joseph. When I was a kid, I grew up in Texas. When I was a young child, I was forced to go to a Baptist Sunday school occasionally. And the only story that ever appealed to me was the story of Joseph. I thought Joseph was the smartest man ever. It got me into a lifelong mindset, Andrew, of preparation, of prepare, don't be scared. Those are who are prepared or less scared. And so I want him to talk about who he is, what he does, and this idea of the Joseph thing.
Right.
So take it away, Andrew.
All right. So you asked me who he is and what he does. So who I am. So I am a husband of going on 14 years to my lovely wife, Jess. I've got 4 children, 10, 8, 6, and 4. We live in the Nashville area, just south of it in Franklin and Brentwood. My office is in Brentwood. I live in Franklin. I've got 3 radio shows. I'm a producer of a Hollywood film called The Baby Boomer Dilemma. It's getting a lot of traction right now, thankfully. And I wrote a book called The Joseph Strategy during COVID. I felt like God gave me this idea for a book as I was reading through the story of Joseph in the Bible. And it's interesting because I wrote the book, and it's basically a 5-step economic game plan to achieve the retirement of your dreams in any economic climate. Every society has seasons of abundance, and every society has seasons of famine. Every person is going to have time frames in their life where, hey, things are going well, they're abundant, but then there's going to be seasons of famine in your own personal life. And so what you do to prepare during a season of abundance determines how well you're going to do during a season of famine. And we all go through famines. Some famines are self-inflicted, aka retirement. Some famines happen to us through a market crash or whatever. But the point is if we do not learn from history, we're bound to repeat it. There's that old adage, if it's true, it's not new, and if it's new, it's not true. Well, this wisdom is 3,500 years old. These 5 strategies is what I basically base my entire firm on. And, I just hired 2 other people this last week. Our team is now up to 5, and we're growing leaps and bounds. I got a new office here in Brentwood in November, signed a 5-year lease, and 7 months in, we're having to look at other offices because it's been going well. So here's a couple, I'll give you the 5 strategies. Number 1, the first strategy is management. So Joseph was a really good manager. There's that old saying, what can be measured can be managed. Joseph was able to interpret a dream and be successful, but that wasn't the beginning of the story for Joseph. Joseph began in a different position altogether. In fact, he was sold as a slave. He had massive adversity, but because the spirit within him was a spirit of excellence, whatever he put his hands to do prospered. And it prospered so much that he was promoted not just to the top position as the slave in Potiphar's house, but then when ultimately he was falsely accused of rape for Potiphar's wife, and he went to prison, because he had that management and he was faithful with whatever he put his hands to do, he was put in charge of the entire prison. So the point is that Joseph was a really good manager to begin with. And that's something that, frankly, we all can grow in. It goes back down to the baseline principles. If you want a bigger house, awesome. How are you treating the house that you're in? Is it a mess? Is it dirty? Is there light bulbs that are out? Are you neglecting it? You got termite damage that you haven't addressed? If you want the bigger house, but you can't manage the one that you're in, why would you deserve more, right? If you want a new car, you want the super nice car, but you're not taking care of the car that you're in, right? If you want a better job or a better position, but you're not faithful with what the role or position you're presently in right now. The point is if you're not a good manager, even what you have will be taken from you. And this is all biblical. The Bible talks about how, if you're not faithful with unrighteous mammon, how can God entrust you with true riches, right? So it begins with being faithful. And so the point is the first strategy, the first chapter in the book is management. That's our first appointment at our firm, which is when someone comes in, they're going to sit down and we're going to take inventory. We're going to, I've got this big, this is not that big, but it's 4 pages, financial questionnaire. And we're going to basically, hey, Mrs. Jones, where do you want to go? What are your goals, your dreams, your desires, your concerns, your objectives? What is important to you? And we have this thorough list. We ask them lots of questions. What's the purpose of each bucket? What's the purpose of your money? Because we want to know how to help you in the future. The second strategy that Joseph perfected, which is the second strategy in the book, it's also the second meeting at our firm, is financial wisdom. Okay, so Joseph received financial wisdom divinely from above. What we do for our second meeting is we're going into our software program and we are basically going through every aspect of your retirement from here until you die, whether it's Social Security and the cost of living adjustments that you can or cannot count on, whether it's any pensions you have, your desired income before taxes at retirement, how much money do you have saved, how much is your weighted portfolio average, how much is your money growing, what if you lose money, what if there's a long-term care situation, how much money do you need on a monthly basis, how much inflation should we factor in, what's the tax implications. We factor in everything from start to finish, because most people at the end of the day, they want an income plan. They want to be able to know, am I going to have enough and am I ever going to run out of money, right? That's the whole point. So we go through all that with them and then we make our recommendations. Now, this is where it gets into the meat and potatoes, okay? which leads me to the third strategy, which is creating your own silo. Okay, so we strongly believe in the silo strategy. Now, where I'm at in the South, there's silos everywhere, right? There's these silos in the fields. It's beautiful. There's silos everywhere. Well, Joseph, he has this, Pharaoh has this dream. Joseph interprets it, and he basically says, we're going to have 7 years of abundance, followed by 7 years of the worst famine ever. And what we do today will determine how well we do in the famine. And so he began to save 20% of everything that Egypt earned into these silos. Now, it says that he saved so much that it literally broke the Abrahamic accounting system. That's how much they were saving. But he didn't let his foot up off the gas pedal. What's cool about that is that when everyone else was prospering and everyone else had more than enough, and frankly, everyone else was living beyond their means, they weren't saving, they were going deeper and deeper in debt, Joseph was faithful. Does this sound a little bit like what we're going through today?
I yeah, I was just thinking that sounds familiar, doesn't it? The whole idea of financing a lifestyle through debt. I thought that was a new thing, but I guess it's pretty ancient.
No, it's been happening. This is what happened with Egypt, and everyone else was living beyond their means. Everyone else was in debt, and they weren't saving during a season of abundance. That's why when the famine hit, oh my gosh, they ran out of money in a hot second, which is why they had to sell their livestock, sell their land, sell their souls, basically their bodies, right? We're going to die, so we'd rather become a slave and not die. And so what the point was is that because Joseph saved in a silo, it was able to not just provide the needs of Egypt during the season of famine, but because he was so faithful and had more than enough, it took care of the needs of the known world. The known world would have died, literally died, if Joseph did not save in a silo and had more than enough. So we believe in the silo strategy. And on a practical note, what that entails is whatever your baseline bills are. Let's say your bills are $5,000 a month in retirement. They're like, listen, if I could have $5,000 a month coming in, I'd be on cloud nine. Cool. So we want to make sure your $5,000 is taken care of by the silo plus a little more. Okay, because you got to have a little bit more for the fund money. You want to travel a little bit. Maybe it's a emergency fund, whatever. You want to have maybe $6,000 or $6,500 coming in from the silo. And then you need that silo to increase to help offset inflation, because inflation is the biggest monkey wrench in everybody's retirement plan. Okay, so you've got to have that coming in. So the point is, there's 5 distinctions of Joseph's silo. Number 1, it was a savings vehicle. Okay, number 2, you could defer taking it for a specific amount of time. Number 3, it could never go backwards in value. So a thief, pestilence, robber, it was protected at that time. They had protections around the silos. And I won't give you all 5 because I want you to get my book, which we'll talk about later. But the point is there's 5 distinctions of the silo. And to me, the thing that is closest to Joseph's silo today, drum roll please, is a fixed index annuity. Okay. Now, before you fall back in your chair and you say, oh my gosh, he said the A word. Listen, we've all heard the stories, whether it's Dave Ramsey, Ken Fisher, Rick Edelman, all these, oh, you don't want to buy an annuity. You don't want to buy an annuity. The annuities are terrible. They have lots of fees, and the people who sell them make a big commission, and there's surrender charges. And guess what? All those things are absolutely true. They're absolutely true, which is why I agree with those guys. You don't want to do that. What they're talking about, by the way, the Rick Edelmans, the Ken Fishers, the Dave Ramseys, the Susie Ormans, what they're talking about is variable annuities, okay? Highest fee-based product on the market, between 3.5% and 5.5% in fees per year. There are surrender charges. You can lose money in the market. It's like the worst thing ever. We don't touch them with a 10-foot pole. So let's just get that out there. Take a deep breath. It's not the end of the world. Okay, thank God. I didn't get triggered because he said the word annuity. There are good annuities out there, okay? There are annuities that offer 0 fees, where you can participate in all of the upside of the market with none of the downside. So imagine a mutual fund that only went up, but whenever the market crashed, it leveled off. That'd be pretty cool. There are annuities like that. Imagine an income or a pension that paid you a certain amount that increased every single year to help offset inflation. So within 30 years, if it's paying you, for example, $20,000 a year, now it's paying you $100,000 30 years down the road. You need that to help offset inflation. So the point is in my estimation, based upon my history, based upon my over a decade of experience in the financial world, the fixed index annuity is the thing that most closely represents Joseph's silo. And the reason why is because in an Armageddon scenario, the annuity companies are the last domino to fall. I'll give you a great example. Besides Bitcoin, besides gold, silver, precious stones, which frankly, both of those have done terrible lately, besides real estate, and besides putting money under your mattress where it can be eaten up by rats, yes, I've really had a client that's happened to, there's only three places you can put your money. Okay. Number one is the stock market, which is intrinsically risky. Number two is banks. I came from the banking industry. I've worked at 3 banks in my life. I went through the global financial crisis, and it is a brutal time to be in banks. 2 of the banks got either merged or had to basically close down. There's Wall Street, which is risky, banks, which we'll talk about in a second, and insurance companies. They're the only 3 places you can park your money. Now, how do banks work? Let's say this water bottle represents $1. For every 10 cents, so I'm going to take 10% of this water bottle, let's say they have 10 cents cash on hand, okay? For every 10 cents the bank has in the vault in cash, they're going to lend out $1.30, $1.40. They're levering out 14, 15 times the amount of cash that they have on hand, which is why in an Armageddon scenario or a cash crisis or a liquidity problem, they're the first ones to go belly up. Now, in my book, The Joseph Strategy, which you'll be able to get access to if you just hold on for a second, in my book, I did some research. A lot of people don't know this. This is important, and hopefully you have a pen. Write this down, please. In America, there is 5,100 banks, give or take a couple, okay? About 5,100 banks. Out of those 5,100 banks, you're not going to believe this, 22% of them since 2008 have failed. They've had to be merged, acquired, bailed out, etc. Right? In our backyard here in the Nashville area, we've had 2 recently. Now they were bought out, but they're bought out because they're struggling with their loans and their credit and all that stuff. There's always underneath the water, there's always something going on, which is why they're bought out. Keep in mind, I was involved in 3 different banks and 2 of them had this happen to them. So I know about this stuff. 22% of that 1,150 banks since 2008 have failed or had to be merged, acquired, etc. And I guarantee you, for the listeners, you probably know of some banks who have changed hands. And chances are they're 1 out of the 5. Now, insurance companies, let's talk about them. We'll take the dollar analogy. For every dollar that they've got promised in liabilities, they keep $1.07, $1.08, $1.10, $1.20 cash on hand. So if there was ever a liquidity problem or they had to pay out all their liabilities tomorrow, they still have billions of dollars in cash. This is why in an Armageddon scenario, insurance companies are the last domino to fall. It's no wonder why the top 5 banks in the world, where do they invest their profits? Well, they don't invest in the stock market. They invest it in insurance companies because insurance companies are state and federally regulated where they have to keep more cash on hand than they have in liabilities. It is as safe can be, and that's why an annuity in an Armageddon scenario, in a famine, the fixed index annuity is the safest thing you can possibly have, which is why it takes care of the silo. A lot of people don't know this, but during the Great Depression, when everyone else was, the New York Yankees, for example, when they were standing in bread lines just a couple months before, they were, having the time of their lives, making tons of money. 1929 hits in the fall, and all of a sudden that great crash. There was one New York Yankee that was earning the tune of $250,000 a year in today's money and
Babe
didn't
Ruth.
lose. Babe Ruth didn't lose 1 penny because he invested his money in annuities. This is becoming a common trend with celebrities. Shaq's another one where he invested his money as he was just getting going because He said, listen, I'm going to be doing a lot of businesses, but at least I've got $1 million a year coming in from an annuity, a silo, if you would. If everything else goes away, I still have $1 million coming in per year. So the silo is what we wanted. The silo strategy is strategy number 3. We want to make sure your baseline is taken care of by the silo. Now, strategy number 4 is you want anything that wasn't used to acquire that silo, that fixed index annuity, you can invest it in the riskier asset classes, the stocks, the bonds, the mutual funds, the real estate, the crypto, whatever. Because if everything else goes away in an Armageddon scenario, then at least your silo is guaranteed. It is principally protected contractually, which means that $6,000 a month, well, you only needed 5, but it's paying you 6, is not going to go away no matter what. Okay. And by the way, if the insurance companies start failing, we're running through the woods with our bean bags and our guns and our, our beef jerky. I mean, it's like the end of civilization. Okay. So like I said, in an Armageddon scenario, the insurance company is the last one to fall. Now, what Joseph did, and this is so important, you guys, I really want you to get this if you're listening. If you've listened up to this point, this is so important, okay? Once you've acquired your silo, it's at that point that you go and buy the riskier asset classes. If you get this out of order, okay, it could be disastrous. This is exactly what Egypt did. This is exactly what the rest of the known world did, is they got it out of order. When everything was hot, when the market's just soaring to the moon, they were the ones that were buying the real estate, the businesses. They were buying the stocks, the bonds, the equity. They were buying the riskier stuff when the market was on fire. And when the market crashed, they didn't acquire the silo. They had to go to the silo and sell all of their stuff at massive discounts to get the silo's resources. This is so important. Everyone else gets it out of order. They buy the stocks, bonds, mutual funds, real estate, the sexy stuff, the crypto, the risky stuff, and then when the market crashes, they have to sell it at a discount to get the income because they don't have any income. This is a travesty, and it's really important that people don't fall into the seductive lethargy that a hot market creates. It's so seductive because it lulls you to sleep thinking that it'll never end. I had people recently, well, more like 5-6 months ago, when the market was just unstoppable. They were considering taking the equity out of their house and putting it into the market because the market was on fire. And I told them that is the worst idea you could possibly have. Do not do that. You will lose your home if the market crashes. And here we are, right? So my point is you take care of the silo first, then you buy the riskier asset classes because your foundation is secured. Your bills are taken care of, right? So,
and I would think, Andrew, I was just going to say on that note, that also creates a little bit more, it reduces some of your anxiety about going after riskier assets. In other words, some people do need that extra money from a more aggressive approach, but they're afraid to do it because they don't, they'll lose everything. So I think that's one of the biggest pluses of annuities that I personally see, is it gives you some measure of, reassurance.
One of the questions we ask in our first appointment, Mrs. Smith, out of the $1 million you have, how much of that $1 million would you feel comfortable losing? And oftentimes they say, well, none. Well, that's ironic because all your money's in the market where you can lose essentially everything. And so whatever you're not comfortable losing, chances are that needs to be in safety, right? I'll briefly tell you the 5th strategy, then I'll tell you what my predictions are, and then I'll let you take it from there. So the 5th strategy is world-changing generosity. Okay, so we want you to be positioned to where you've got more than enough coming in. It doesn't matter what's important to you, whether it's a church, a charity, a child, a grandchild. We want you to have more than enough to give to the things that are important to you, because we do feel like it is better to give than to receive. Joseph, a lot of people don't know this, but according to Egyptian history, Now keep in mind, the rest of the known world would have died, okay? But thank God Joseph was wise enough to keep saving to where he had enough to get the known world through that season of famine. Now he owned everything, okay? So he owned all the land. He owned all the people because they sold themselves as slaves because they had nothing else to give. They had already given them everything as this famine went on. So what he did, though, and this is what's so powerful and impactful, and many, even Christians or people who are familiar with the Bible, may not know this, but this is not in the Bible. This is Egyptian history, and I got this from a billionaire out of Australia who studies history. Okay, this guy's ridiculous. His name is Dave Hodgson, amazing dude. But what happened is Joseph, around year 5, they had already sold everything. He was giving these other nations seed. He was giving them seed to plant, right? Plant farms and get, he was lending them their own, animals, their own farmland, their houses. It all belonged to Joseph and Pharaoh, but he was allowing them to use it. He was giving them seed, and then he was allowing them to keep 80% of whatever. Keep in mind, they already sold all this, but he was only making them pay a 20% tax. Now you got to catch this, okay? So keep in mind, when there's a season of abundance, Joseph is saving 20% and everyone else is spending above their means. Now we're in a season of famine. Joseph owns everything. He allows them to use all of his own stuff that was sold rightfully to Joseph. He gives it all back for them to use and be a steward of. And all he requires as he's giving them seed is, I just want a 20% tax. So he's teaching them the discipline of saving 20%, which they should have known in the season of abundance. He's teaching them this now in the season of famine. And then 3 to 4 years after the season of famine is over, keep in mind, he still owns everything. They are the wealthiest country. They're as wealthy as Egypt has ever been throughout its entire history. Joseph goes to Pharaoh and he convinces Pharaoh to forgive and give back all of the things. He taught them how to save. He taught them the value of discipline, and he ends up forgiving them and giving back their lands, their property, their animals, and he just gives it back. And that's the thing. It's world-changing generosity. He didn't have to do that. He obtained all that stuff fair and square, but he knew that if you own everything, you actually own nothing. And you have to have diversity within culture. And so it was better to give. They learned the lesson, and now you fast forward a couple generations, they forgot the lesson, but that's neither here nor there. But the point is we want you to be positioned like Joseph to where you have more than enough to give to the things that are important to you, because at the end of your life, you can't take any of this stuff with you. We're just a steward. It's actually the highest calling that we can have, is we're just really trying to be good stewards. Now, what is my prediction for what's going to happen? Now, I read a lot of economic books as well. I think that the upcoming years are we're going to see some 20 to 30 point swings. I don't think that it's the big one. Okay, I don't think the big one's going to hit, the global recession, until somewhere between 2028 and 2032, and I'll tell you why. That's the big one. That's the global recession. Now, keep in mind, I did a movie with the founder of the 401k, the foremost expert of Social Security in the world, state comptrollers, Nobel-winning economists, PhDs, the largest financial whistleblower in American history. We're talking the most brilliant minds when it comes to retirement there is. And it's not just them. It's also a lot of economists that have been right for 40 years, or at least 94% right. The global recession that's coming around 2028 to 2032 is 100% demographically driven. Let me explain. During that time, there will not be enough taxpayers to fund this swelling elderly population to be able to service the obligations of Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security disability. In other words, we have too many baby boomers that are requiring these assistance programs that we're not going to have enough taxpayers to fund it. Now, we're not the only country that's in trouble. Germany and Japan are worse off than us. China is right behind us. Ironically, Australia and Canada are better off. So, but nonetheless, as Germany goes, so goes Europe. Japan is in dire straits. They have the worst of it all. But between us, China, Japan, and Germany, that'll take the entire world into a recession because we're huge economies. So from a demographic standpoint, we're going to have a global recession. It could last 10 years. That's my prediction. Now, in between now and then, massive volatility. I don't think we're going to see a 50-point drop. I don't think we'll see that, but for sure 20 or 30%. Now, here's the deal. Now, I didn't say this. Ted Benna, the founder of the 401k, said this. If you're in retirement and you are receiving money from your portfolio in any capacity, okay, and you have a 20% loss, you will never recover. Now, I didn't say that, okay? Ted Benna, the founder of the 401k, said that. So it's really important, safety, security, peace of mind, guaranteed income that increases, help offset inflation. I mean, it's no wonder why our team is growing leaps and bounds, and I'm outgrowing a 5-year lease in 6 months. Because what's coming, folks, more and more people are going to run out of money. They're not going to be prepared for long-term care. They're going to die in a Medicaid bed. I know that's brutal, but I see it all the time. They're going to, lose half of their portfolio to sequence of returns risk in 3 years when the market's going down. There's so many landmines that you can step on that if you do not have safety, security, peace of mind, it's impossible for you to come out of retirement unscathed. I have another story, but I don't know how we're doing on time.
This is all fascinating, and I run the show. I can have as much time as you've got, so okay. I run things.
Yeah, you're the boss. So I'll tell you a quick story. And for those of you guys who may be taking notes, I'd write this down. There's a gentleman. He's my favorite teacher. His name is Miles Monroe, and he talks about where purpose is not known, abuse is inevitable. And I'll say that again. Where purpose is not known, abuse is inevitable. Now, let's say back in the day around World War II, I come to Tammy, and Tammy is the cat's meow. She's working for Ford, by the way, and she is so good at what she does. And I'm working for GM. I'm high up at GM, and I say, Tammy, we got to get you over here. What do we got to do to get you over here? Now, back then, I could not pay Tammy more dollars per hour to get her to come to GM from Ford. It was actually illegal, okay? So what I would do is I would say, Tammy, here's what we're going to do. Okay, I really want you to come work for me. What I'll do is if you'll work for us for 40 years, okay, I will give you a pension, and I'll give you 80% of your highest year's salary for the rest of your life, no matter how long you live. Now, I'm thinking as the employer, Tammy will never stay with me for 40 years. I'll never have to make due on that pension. Tammy's thinking as the employee, where do I sign? This is the best thing ever. I just found my meal ticket. I'm going to be just fine financially for the rest of my life. Fast forward 40 years. Everybody is working for 40 years, and everybody's getting a pension. Well, in the 80s, all these companies who are offering pensions are literally going bankrupt because it is astronomically expensive to service these pensions, right? So Ted Benna steps on the scene. Ted Benna creates the 401k, which is also where the thrift savings plan, the 457, the 403b, this is where all those things came from, okay? Now, the idea behind the 401k, remember, where purpose is not known, abuse is inevitable. The purpose of the 401k was as follows. So I, as the employer, I'm going to Tammy, the employee, and I say, Tammy, listen, I cannot do a pension these days. Golly, it's expensive. But here's what we'll do. We'll do a roundabout way. For every year that you work for us, I will match a contribution that up to a certain point that you're willing to work with me and contribute to. And we're going to create this account. It's called a 401k. and we'll work together and we'll help fund it together so that when you're retired and you're ready to hang your hat and you're ready to go off into the sunset and enjoy your golden years, you should have a nice lump sum that you would then convert back into a pension. This was the whole purpose of the 401k. It was designed for you to take the money that you work together with your employer, and it was to convert back into a pension. Well, what happened? Wall Street happened. Wall Street hijacked the entire thing. They said, oh my gosh, look at this this is trillions of dollars that we're going to be able to get our hands on. And what happened? They hijacked the entire system. So what ended up happening is while you're in your 20s, 30s, 40s, and 50s, you're paying fees because Wall Street is controlling your 401k account or 403b, 457. You get the idea. According to Forbes, the average retirement account pays 2.1% in fees per year. Now, according to nerdwallet.com, and you can look this up. This is absolutely true. Look it up. Test it, okay? According to nerdwallet.com, the average middle-class American is going to pay $1.1 million in fees over their lifetime. Now, when they surveyed those people, they said, how much do you think you're paying? Oh, do you know what the average was? It was $28,000. They thought they were paying only $28,000 in fees, when in reality they're paying $1.1 million over their lifetime. Wall Street hijacked the system before retirement, and guess what they did after retirement? Well, they don't want you to go and get a pension or an annuity or a silo. They don't want that. No. They want you to roll over that 401k, 403b, 457, TSP, whatever. They want you to roll it over into an IRA, and then they want you to keep it just like it was before, invested in the market, right? Where it's all about growth at any cost, and they never talk about sequence of returns risk. They don't talk about market volatility. They don't talk about tax consequences. They don't talk about running out of money in your 80s. They don't talk about any of that. Why? Because you just became Wall Street's pension. You're paying them a percent. You're paying them a fee every single year for the rest of your life. Now, if you go online and you look up Ted Bennett is pissed because the 401k and the 403b, 457, TSP, it got hijacked. It's being abused. Remember, where purpose is not known, abuse is inevitable. If I take my phone on the weekends and I use this for frisbee golf, I'm abusing the purpose of my phone. Well, if we take your 401k and we put it in an IRA and keep it in the market, we're abusing the purpose of that retirement account. So that's why when Ted Bennett says, if you're going the traditional route, not the way I intended it, the traditional route that Wall Street wants, it's no wonder if you take a 20% hit and you're taking money every single year, you're going to run out of money. And again, you have to look, everybody has a bias, including me. Okay, everybody has a bias. Wall Street's bias is fees. I could make 4 to 5 times as much charging a 1% assets under management fee than just helping people with silos and helping people with their income planning and their taxes. I can make 4 to 5 times as much. By the way, my commission, which I get paid from an insurance company, not one penny comes out of your portfolio, not one. But again, Wall Street really is against pensions and annuities because they're not getting their fee. And they'll come up with any excuse that they want. You don't want to know what my bias is? So when I was at Wells Fargo, so here's my little phone, and in 2007, 2008, where people lost 30 to 40% of their portfolio, they were going golfing 3 times a week, yoga, having breakfast with the girls. Now all of a sudden, they lost 30 or 40%, and they're having to go to work for some purple-haired weirdo with a lip ring that's their new boss and is the age of their grandchild. Or they're having to stand on their feet for 10 hours a day and go work at Lowe's because they've got to somehow come up with lost revenue, right? In their 70s. I saw this happen. There were financial advisors that were literally committing suicide because of all the thousands of clients that were livid because the market's falling. And why didn't you prevent this? I thought you're supposed to manage my money. So my bias is, yeah, I can make 4 to 5 times as much, but what's going to happen with my stress level? I mean, I don't want my phone ringing off the hook. When the market crashes, my phone doesn't ring because my clients don't lose a penny. That's the promise that I give them. I'm not going to charge advisor fees, and I'm not going to lose your money. Point blank. So if you look at the purpose of retirement accounts, it's being abused right and left, which is no wonder why when the big one hits, it's just going to be like Joseph in Egypt. The Bible says, and I'll wrap it up with this, and I'll pass it back to you, Tammy. There's a proverb. It says, a prudent man or woman foresees calamity and prepares himself or herself for it, but the simple move forward and are punished. I'll say it again. A prudent man or woman foresees calamity and prepares themselves for it, but the simple move forward and are punished. I don't want my clients to be punished. I've seen it happen in the first hand, and it is terrifying. I learned very quickly I don't want to lose people's money, right? And I help people just like my mom. I didn't even get into that, but I built my entire firm basically because of what happened with my father. My father passed away at the young age of 45. Left my mom in a major financial pickle. She took her money that she got from a life insurance death benefit. She invested in the market. Within 3 months, she had stepped on a financial landmine. Every penny that she was earning in interest was eaten up by fees. She was having to go back to work for minimum wage. The primary breadwinner, which was my father, has died. He worked for IBM, made 6 figures. Now he's gone. And my younger brother and younger sister are still living at the house, and my mom is terrified. And it forced me to find different products, fixed index annuities, with accumulation and income in mind, where we took care of her. She didn't have to go back to work for minimum wage. She didn't have to go back to school and get a degree. She was able to retire years earlier than she thought. She makes $70,000 per year, and it increases every year to help offset inflation. She was able to buy the riskier asset classes like real estate, which is strategy number 4. And she's got time freedom, and she's able to be generous, strategy number 5, and do the things that are important to her. I built my firm because of what happened with my mom. That light bulb moment compelled me to start a company with her in mind, to help women primarily. 4 out of 5 men will die married. 4 out of 5 women die single. And they're the ones that make all the mistakes. They step on all the landmines. So I want to help people just like my mom to where they don't make those mistakes and run out of money and die in a Medicaid bed alone, right? I want them to have peace, the security, the income, the freedom to where they can do the things that are important to them, where they can go to the beach and dig their toes in the sand and have a beverage and a book and soak up the sun and truly recharge and enjoy their golden years the way that they deserve. So anyway, I'll pass it back to you, Tammy. Hopefully you got something out of that.
Wow, fantastic. I mean, I got a lot of it. There's a lot we could unpack. Unfortunately, I could talk to you all day, but I don't know if everybody wants to listen all day. I would say that you hit on some really critical things there, Andrew. And the biggest thing I think is that the powers that be, the lobbies, the groups that really have a lot of money and influence, they're going to make it harder and harder and harder for people to live an independent life, whether they're retired or whether they're just still in the workforce. They're going to throw everything at us.
Yeah,
that's possible. The only saving grace is that hopefully the insurance companies have a pretty strong pull, and maybe they will be. They definitely are the last man standing, no matter what. Because I know that I asked my friend who also does what you do. What happens if the annuity companies go under and the insurance, because she does a lot of structured whole life, and she said if they go down, Tammy, it is the end of times. It's the end of the world as you know it. We're all pretty much screwed if that happens. So, but this is fascinating. Now tell people, first of all, how a little tiny bit about the movie, where they can go to get that, and how they can get your book, and how they can get in touch with you, and what states do you work in?
All of them. We can do all of them.
You can do all of them.
Yeah.
He's bad. He's nationwide.
Yeah. So you can get the book, the movie, book an appointment with us. If you just want to ask a question, legacybuilderswealth.com. Legacybuilderswealth.com. You can get the movie, you can get the book. We'll send it to you for free. And I strongly encourage you to be prepared, because there is a famine that's coming. And we're coming off of one of the greatest bull market runs in the bond market that America has ever seen. 40 years up, 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 up. And I'm sorry to say that that gravy train is coming to an end. And a lot of people don't realize, because of regulation, how much money we've printed, the supply chain, we're fixing to have some major a stagnant economy. Unemployment's going to go up. It's going to be a tough couple years.
And
So,
that isn't the bottom yet. As Andrew said,
no,
I
no.
agree with him that about 2030 seems to be some sort of magic year. It's the thing talked about by Bill Gates and the World Economic Forum and all these other groups. So I think he's right, because they understand demographics. They understand how the population impacts everything.
It does.
So yeah, I believe, but we are going to have troubling times in between that. It's not going to be like you wake up one morning and wow, it all went, to hell in a handbasket. It's
It's going to be a rocky ride, and that's why people, like, I'm telling you, it's like being up at the poker table, to use a gambling analogy, which I'm not a gambler, but everybody knows what I'm talking about. If you're on fire and you've been winning, and all of a sudden your luck is turned and you're losing every hand, you've got to know when to cash out. And there are bonuses. There's 20%, 30% bonuses where it's like, listen, I'm already down. Like 2020 and 2021 was massive for everybody. Everybody made money. If you didn't make money, you were a fool, or your financial advisor was a fool. Okay. Everybody made massive amounts of money. Now they're starting to lose it. So what do? Is you still look at the overall. In the last 3 to 4 years, you're probably up 100% or more. So cash out now, even if you've lost 20% year to date or 15% year to date, go get a 20% bonus, and it's still a net positive. And now you've got guarantees your money will increase with the markets going up. It won't go, it won't go down if the market crashes. It's the best of both worlds. You can have your cake and eat it too, but do not procrastinate. Don't bury your head in the sand like an ostrich. This is the time to be proactive. You need a second opinion. If you need to think about, oh my God, I've been with my financial advisor for 20 years. I never thought this day would come. I'm so concerned, and it's weird to have that conversation with another person, and I feel like I'm cheating on them a little bit. They create pseudo relational equity, fake relational equity. They'll take you golfing 12 times. They'll take you out to dinner 50 times, because they know when the market crashes, you feel responsible because you have this pseudo relational equity where they do this so that you won't leave when the market crashes. I don't have to do that. I tell people, listen, you're going to come into my office. I'm not going to wine and dine you 40 times, right? Which, even though I do, we do dinner seminars and things like that, but and ambassador events, wine tape. We do all that, but I'm not here to wine and dine you. I'm not here to take you golfing 50 times. I'm not here to be your best friend. I'm here to provide you results. If you're looking for a firm where you need that, I'm not your firm. But if you want results and guarantees, well, then we can talk. So
perfect.
So anyway.
No, I mean, I love your approach, and that's why Andrew is one of our initial contributors over on safemoneytrends.com. So if you go there, you'll see stuff from him, by him, for you. And there'll be other ways to contact him. In the show notes of this podcast will be Andrew's contact information. And I encourage you to do get a second opinion. And you know something about advisors, the really good ones understand that the skills and tools that you use to get up the mountain are not the same ones that you need coming down. So you need someone who specializes in taking what you've worked so hard to save and turning it into a stream of income that you can't outlive. There's only one product that I know of that does that. And Andrew has the inside information on that product. And there's a lot of other safe money strategies that he can do for you as well. I wanted to thank Andrew for taking time out of his busy day, because he really is on fire lately. And I'm so happy to have him in our little tiny stable of trustworthy contributors. And this is Tammy DeLu for the Safe Space podcast. Andrew, I'll talk to you later on in the week. And I thank you again for being here. I really appreciate it.
My
Just
pleasure.
a wealth of information. So go to
LegacyBuildersWealth.com.
LegacyBuilders.com. I always
LegacyBuildersWealth.com.
LegacyBuildersWealth.com. And check everything out there. Thanks, Andrew. And we'll talk again soon. Bye.
All right.